The Cursed Recipe, The Terrifying Secret of the Pasta House. In the small town of Ravenswood, nestled in the heart of the countryside, there was a restaurant called the Pasta House. It had been in operation for decades, and the owner, Luigi, was a jolly man who loved nothing more than cooking up delicious Italian meals for his loyal customers. The restaurant was a popular spot in town, known for its homemade pasta and rich sauces that left patrons licking their plates clean. But as time went on, strange things began to happen at the Pasta House. Customers would complain of feeling sick after eating there, and some even reported seeing strange things in their food. Luigi, always one to take pride in his restaurant, tried to brush off the complaints. He blamed it on the customers' sensitive stomachs or their overactive imaginations. But deep down, he knew that something was amiss. One day, a stranger came into town and took a job at the Pasta House as a dishwasher. He was a quiet man, but something about him made the other employees uneasy. They couldn't quite put their finger on it, but there was an aura of darkness surrounding him that sent shivers down their spines. Despite their misgivings, the stranger proved to be a diligent worker, and Luigi was pleased with his performance. But as time went on, the strange occurrences at the restaurant began to escalate. Customers would report seeing strange, wriggling strands of spaghetti in their food, and some even claimed that their plates were moving of their own accord. Luigi tried to investigate, but he could never find anything out of the ordinary. One evening, after the restaurant had closed for the night, Luigi was doing some paperwork in his office, when he heard a strange noise coming from the kitchen. He got up to investigate, his heart pounding in his chest. As he entered the kitchen, he was hit with a foul stench that made him gag. He searched for the source of the smell, but he couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. Just as he was about to turn back, he heard a strange noise coming from the dishwasher's station. Luigi cautiously approached the station and was horrified by what he saw. The dishwasher was standing in the middle of the kitchen, his eyes rolled back into his head, and his body contorted in unnatural ways. Erupting from his bowels poured a mass of living spaghetti drenched in brown sauce. The noodles wriggled and squirmed, as if they were alive, and the sauce seemed to be pulsating with a sickly glow. Luigi tried to run, but he was rooted to the spot by some unseen force. The spaghetti slithered across the floor towards him, wrapping itself around his legs and dragging him towards the dishwasher. Just as he thought he was about to be consumed by the living pasta, the stranger let out a blood-curdling scream and collapsed to the ground. The spaghetti and sauce disappeared, leaving no trace behind. In the days that followed, the stranger was nowhere to be found. The restaurant closed down, and no one in Ravenswood ever spoke of the Pasta House again. But those who had witnessed the horror that had taken place there knew that something truly evil had been lurking in the kitchen, waiting to unleash its terrible power upon the unsuspecting town. Years went by, and the memory of the Pasta House faded from the town's collective consciousness. But one day, a group of teenagers dared each other to explore the abandoned restaurant, and they stumbled upon a horrifying discovery. In the kitchen, they found a shrine to the stranger who had worked there all those years ago. It was adorned with strange symbols and incense, and in the center of the shrine was a pot of boiling spaghetti sauce. The sauce was alive, wriggling and squirming with a life of its own. The teenagers couldn't believe their eyes. They had stumbled upon something truly terrifying. As they stood there in shock, they heard a noise coming from the back of the restaurant. They cautiously made their way towards the noise and found a hidden door. They hesitated for a moment, but their curiosity got the better of them, and they opened the door. Inside, they found a room filled with strange artifacts and mysterious symbols. It was clear that whoever had been working in this room had been dabbling in dark magic. As they explored the room, they came across a journal. It was written by the stranger who had worked at the Pasta House all those years ago. In it, He described how he had come across a recipe for a special sauce that would bring the dead back to life. He had spent years perfecting the recipe, and he had finally succeeded. The sauce was alive and had the power to bring the dead back to life, but it came with a terrible cost. The living pasta that emerged from the sauce was cursed, and it would consume anyone who came into contact with it. The teenagers were horrified by what they had discovered. They knew that they had to destroy the sauce and put an end to the curse once and for all. They gathered up all the artifacts and symbols and burned them in a nearby field. Then they poured the sauce into the fire, watching as it writhed and bubbled before finally disappearing into nothingness. As the flames died down, the teenagers knew that they had put an end to the curse of the pasta house. But they also knew that they would never forget the horror that they had experienced that day. They made a pact never to speak of it again and to keep the secret buried deep in their hearts. Years went by, and the town of Ravenswood forgot about the pasta house once again. But the teenagers who had stumbled upon the cursed recipe never forgot. They knew that the darkness that had taken hold in that small restaurant could never truly be erased. It would always be lurking, waiting to rear its ugly head again. And they were ready to face it if it ever did.